Hey guys, B-Sticks here. Go follow me on Instagram. Go cop some of my free mini kits. The link is down there. Today we're looking at the chords of Mac Miller and we're going to break down the song Self-Care, which has two sections. We're going to look at both of these sections and we're going to transpose them to C major / A minor just to make it easy for you on the keyboard. And I'm going to show you all the changes, loads of sauce spilled, loads of tips and tricks. And then we're going to make a sample. We're going to apply these things in the DAW. Let's jump to the keyboard and get straight into it. So here we are at the piano. First of all, I'm going to play you the chords one by one in the original key, which is G minor, or you could see that as B flat major. And then we're going to transpose it to C major, and I'll show you the chords that should be a little bit easier for you to play with the white notes and a couple of black notes. So the original song, ba, 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 3, 4, ba, 3, 4, ba. The chords change like that on the rhythm. So we move from a G minor 7th to a 1 semitone down, a diminished chord built off of the F sharp or G flat, however you want to look at it. Diminished chord sounds very mysterious. They used to use that in like silent movies when someone was strapped to like the railway, so it sounded very very mysterious. And the cool thing about diminished chords is they are built by stacking minor third intervals on top of each other. And if you know one shape of diminished seventh, you know 4 chords. I'll show you, right? So let's make a diminished. So we'll take that F sharp root there. We'll move up 3 semitone. We'll move up another 3 semitone. We'll move up another. So now if I take this and I move that up an octave, now I've got an A diminished chord. If I move that A up, we're just doing inversions here really. Move that up to there. We've got a C diminished chord, and if I move it up again, we've now got a D sharp or E flat diminished chord. And diminished chords are really good because they're very much of a tension chord, and we can use them a semitone below any minor chord in a diatonic scale and use it as a passing chord. And you hear that all the time in R&B, lo-fi, jazz, neo-soul, all those kind of genres use diminished chords as a means of passing between chords. So if you ever think, oh, what's that mysterious sounding chord there? It's probably a diminished, or it might be some kind of altered dominant chord. So they're both great ways of getting from one chord to another. Let's look at moving those chords down to C major / A minor. So instead of G minor, our chord would be A minor, our first chord. A minor 7th there, which is just your A, your C, your E, and your G, right? Then we need to build a diminished chord, a semitone underneath that. How do we build that? Remember, we just stack minor thirds. There's our diminished chord. We can add an extra note in as well, there on top if we want. So we're going from to there. What we're doing there is we're essentially going from 6 to the sharp 5 chord in the scale. Then we're going to move to an E rooted chord. Now the E's interesting because you could see that as either the 3rd in the scale of C major, but I want you to look at it as the 5 chord of the A chord, because essentially our target chord is the A minor, but we're getting there via this E chord. And what do we know about the 5 chord? We know that we can build a dominant chord that is a tension chord that pulls us back to our 1 chord here. If we build this 5 chord off of the E, what have we got? We got, and I'm just adding the E on top again, just to give us a bit more colour, but you don't have to do that. Look, that is an E dominant chord in its most simple form. The B section now changes key. It actually goes up a minor third. And the chords that we've got, we start with an F sharp major 7 chord. Then it goes to an F sharp major 6th chord. That nice changing of the top note melody there. We drop to an F minor 7 chord, which goes. Then we drop to a really nice chord, which is the which is a B flat dominant chord. Normally we'd play it like this, but we take that note and put it down here. We get a really nice chord there, 4-note chord. If I add the bass note in down here, we go. Now if we transpose that back down to C major or A minor, we'll have the same movement of chords, but we'll have a slightly different progression. Drop it down by 1 semitone now to get to A minor. So we'll play an F major 7, drop that to an F major 6, and next chord will be an E minor 7. So see, it's really easy with the white keys, so we've literally just got, and then we've got to make that dominant chord. It's going to be an A dominant chord this time because we've brought it down a half step. Take out A dominant, we add the minor 7th onto our A triad, we get this, we take that A, drop it, we get that voicing there. So all together we've now got F major 7, so we should see that A dominant chord as really a 5 of a D minor chord. To play that chord here, like, and then play a D minor chord. D minor, what do we notice about a D minor 9? If we take the D away, we've got an F major 7, right? So we could still use the idea and concept of the 5-1, so basically the A going to the D, but instead of playing a D minor, we use it with an F root instead. Instead of a... So if we use it with the F root, we can do that and it works. And that harmonic vehicle you can use as well. So let's jump back to the laptop, apply all this to a sample, I'll show you some techniques you can use to get this sounding really cool and in a similar vein to the Mac Miller. So for our sample, I've gone for an A and a B section just like in the original Self-Care track, and I started programming this synth patch which is from Sky Keys called the Crackle Reverse Piano, and I didn't really add much to it, but let's look at the MIDI here that I programmed in. So I started with an A minor chord, so our 6th chord, and all I did here was I moved the notes around a little bit. You can see that they consist of A, C, E and G, but I've got the C on top of the chord here, and I also added another E note on the very top of the chords. I doubled up on that E note, put that on the top of the chord. It sounded like this. And the reason I put this note on top is because I wanted to create a top line melody for our sample, and I will show you that quickly. So that my top line melody went from E to G, F to E, then to D and A. So if we look at the first 4 bars of our sample, I followed the same progression as in the A section of the Mac Miller song, the Self-Care. I went from an A minor to a G sharp diminished chord, then I went back to an A minor chord here in bar 3, and then I went to an E dominant chord. The Mac Miller song is a 4-bar phrase, but I did a little bit more variation. I went to the E chord in bar 4, the E dominant chord, but from bars 5 to 9 I did away with that E chord and I just went from the A minor chord to the G sharp diminished chord. I'll play you the first 8 bars of just the main synth. Bars 9 to 17 are pretty much the same, although I just made the top line melody a tiny bit more busy. If I play it for you now from bars 9 to 17, you'll be able to see. You can see how my top line melody is giving us a nice flow. Although we're only using a few chords, it's keeping it interesting for us, which I think is really important, especially if we're trying to stand out from the crowd of boring samples and make something interesting that will catch the ear of another producer or writer or artist. And as you can see, there's hardly any sounds in this sample, but it still sounds really full. Chord progression in Self-Care is really simple in itself. As you can see, it's just bouncing between 4 chords really the whole whole edge. Again, it's all about sound selection. Obviously this main synth is quite a full sound. I didn't put any processing on it. All I did was EQ'd out some bottom and some top end to give it a little bit of space, where I repeated the 8 bars of chords, slightly changed up the melody, but not much at all. Bass wise, pretty standard, pretty straightforward. Initially I just followed root notes, so going from the A to the G sharp to the A to the E, and then for bar 9-17 I put a few fills in just like this, so you'll hear this like. All I'm doing is changing up the rhythm here slightly on these little fills, and I'm anticipating the following note with my bass note here. So before the A, I might do a D, which is a fourth away, and it naturally pulled to that A note. What I did here for the guitar, I thought I wanted a top line melody. I pulled the guitar in from one of my samples in my Levels 2 pack. I time stretched it to fit the timing of this sample, and I had to raise it by 4 semitones in order to make it in the right key, but it actually sounded really good. So together with that guitar, so just added a little bit of an interesting texture on top, especially as I pitched it up. It doesn't really sound like a guitar, it just sounds like something dancing around in the high end. And then I also pulled in a PERC loop from my Levels 2 kit, which added a little bit of bounce. So I didn't want to really make it really drum heavy, but bounce here. Again, I just stretched that to fit this sample and just put a noise gate on, gated the percussion to make it sound a little bit more punchy. So if I really accentuate the gate, you'll have a listen. I added a tiny bit of vinyl crackle. Now in Self-Care, the whole sample moves up a minor third, but I programmed this again to keep it easy for you guys in the key of C major, A minor. Really soulful R&B-esque chord progression here. So the main synth goes from an F major 7 to the F major 6 like this. Then we got the E minor 7 to that really nice A7 chord from bar 21 to 25. Added a little top note here, but nothing too crazy, and repeated that for the second half here. The synth sound I used for this was just a desert organ patch in the Sky keys. You see me using Sky keys all the time. Bass wise, if I solo the bass, I kept it pretty simple, followed root notes, a couple of passing tones here, again using like steps, maybe like a tone away from this note. So I used the G here before anticipating the A note here. So together, sound like this. The same movement that is used in Self-Care, and also drop the tempo down on the sample here. You see in Logic it's quite easy to do that. Tempo marker here that I just clicked and dragged it from 142 BPM to 120 BPM. So I continued with my guitar from my Levels 2 pack, and that sounded like this. I added a little Valhalla pitch delay here on this preset reverse pitch soundtrack echoes. I thought it sounded really good. I just set the mix to 23.9%, left it as it was, kept the percussion going along, the vinyl crackle, and this, although there were only a few sounds, it gave us a really full sound. These Sky Keys patches have a lot of information in the sounds that really, you don't need many sounds to make a full sounding sample. Now all I did with the mastering chain, it was my usual mastering chain, but with this sound shifter I could pitch the samples to be exactly in the same key as the Mac Miller song. So I went up one for the second section, and in the first section I just dropped the pitch down 2 semitones, and it sounded like this. Which is the exact keys, and like this for the B section. So there you have it. Go cop my free mini kits. And I hope you enjoyed the chords of Mac Miller using Self-Care. And I will catch you on the next one.